This is a good one. Bucket.
Hey. All right, welcome back. We are here with another episode of a series we are calling Book It. We are here to put together a series of videos that outline the ins and outs of the print, modeling, and commercial industry for those who are looking to not only enter the industry, but to level up in the industry. And that's what today's episode is all about. It's about callbacks. What do you do now after you get a callback? I mean, this is not an elementary episode, right? Tell me about it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this would cover how to stand out in a callback, how to just essentially be more in the running to book it, on top of, just covering all aspects, whether you're green or a veteran. A callback, it usually applies specifically to commercials. So you have your first audition, and then a callback is when you get called back to basically do, whether it's the same audition for the same client, but this time you have more eyes on the room. When it was an in-person, you'd literally have them there in front of you. It could be from just the director in front of you, or you can have up to 12 people, which is including the creative agency, the client, the director, creative, producer. You have all eyes on you. And you could either be doing the same thing, or they could have a completely different idea on which they want you to try to audition.
And that could be both virtual and in person nowadays, right? Because with Zoom and different programs like that, they'll have all these people on. If you're virtual, they'll have them all online while you're there auditioning, right?
Yeah. So since COVID, it has majority the majority of them since COVID have been virtual and seldom in-person ones. They're still there, but not like how it used to be. I know for all actors, it's those callbacks where you get the it's like, I don't know what it is. And I know there are a lot of you out there who are working actors and who audition regularly. Until now, whether you've been doing it for a decade, we still struggle with what we feel inside and second guess and let our minds run. And there's just so much callbacks. They're just so pivotal. It's just like, oh.
So the nerves don't go away, no matter how often you do it. The nerves are still a thing.
I mean, you regulate them, and you have in time, naturally, you figure out ways to mute it out, distract yourself, realize, get mentally stronger. I can speak for myself that I do still get the jitters. I do still get nervous every single time. You do have those butterflies in your stomach, this is it.
You have a callback. The first things you're probably looking at are probably logistical, right? Why don't you run through what you need to look through once you get the callback in your email?
Yeah. So you get your callback notification from your agency or notification from LA Casting. So basically you're looking at your fitting dates and your booking date or your work days. And you want to make sure that you don't have any conflicts, that you're not already working on those days. And if you are, that is when you tell your agent right away. Hey, or if you're on hold. So making sure that there's no conflicts. And then speaking of conflicts with other competitors. So if you already have an exclusive contract that you've already shot, say if it was Verizon, you want to make sure you don't and you're on callback for Verizon and you did Samsung a year ago. You want to make sure there's no exclusivity, that
they had a 1 year no compete type clause in it.
So you look at the breakdown and it'll give you an address if it's an in-person callback, or if it's a virtual meeting, whether it's Zoom. There's several platforms for the virtual meeting. So make sure you have it downloaded so that you're not last minute downloading it right before your call time. And then making sure, and if it's in person, I remember I had to learn this the hard way. I got used to the callback being at the same place as the first call. That I just assumed it was at Cast Partner or at Castaway Studios. I'm just gonna go there. In the bitter end, you find out it's in Wilshire. They just, I don't know, for whatever reason, they needed a bigger studio or smaller studio. And you're ooh, I'm going to be late to this one. Make sure you just double check all the details and if that's okay for you. You're looking at the rate and the contracts and stuff like that. Are you okay with it being exclusive?
Why do you need to have a callback with all these people in front of you? What's the purpose? What's going on here?
Really, it would just be to see if you're easy to work with, if you take direction well. if you can adapt easily to change last minute, just seeing you in person and doing it, because it's one thing, especially now with their self-tapes, you're alone in your room and you can redo it over and over. Can you do it on demand with 20 people watching and then someone kind of dictating or kind of just, slightly making small adjustments? And can you listen? On top of the craft, obviously, you have to look in person. Like, do you really look like that? How do you read? So there's a look altogether, the full package of the look, your craft, you're good at what you do, and really just like your character and how you feel and emanate in the room. That's my opinion.
They're going to spend all day with you. And so if you in the callback give off kind of bad energy or something like that, they may not want to, have you around them all day for that shoot.
Yeah, I think it's all energy. As long as you carry yourself, like what I do is like when I walk in, I already have that mindset of like, I'm content and I'm grateful to be here. And so that just automatically puts that like this face. So a lot of times, sometimes it's like, why did they make me do a callback? I did the exact same thing in the first one. And they do want to see if you could do it again. And then sometimes they're like, we love what you just did. Can you just turn out a little more and look eyeline to camera with a slight smile? Or maybe like a exhale, just like small little things. And if you could cue in on that and see, because all those, that's going to happen on set. And if you're just not present and you're just not a good listener, because you'd be surprised. There are a lot of professionals out there who just cannot take direction. If you could, yeah, that's exactly it. If you can take direction, can you take direction? Can you improvise?
What type of people are at the callback? I know you said that there's all kinds of people in there, but who should I expect? I know I was nervous because, there's people in suits. Is it universally the same people, or what type of people in general could you expect to see there?
Like I said, it could really range. Sometimes it's just the session runner, the person who's running the camera, and maybe just a casting director and the director. Nowadays too, though, you could go and you think it's empty and you think it's just a session runner, but they're online. They're virtual. They're watching you on the screen. The creative agency, the clients for sure, the producer, the writer. And if they're not going to see it then, it's going to be sent to them later. Everybody when you go on set, say you book the job, when you go on set, they all already know you. They all have looked at your video 100 times. In the callback, you may be in your first call, you may be going in for, say, mom. And then they see all the submissions. They watch all like 50. They found their mom they like. I'm like, I could see her as like the chef in the other scene. Why don't we bring her in and like have her try out both? Let's put her for chef.
And so that's a curveball you're experiencing right there in the callback.
Yeah,
they probably are telling you ahead of time that they're changing your role.
Yeah, or sometimes you will get it in the callback and they'll say the breakdown change, but you just never know. You just never know. Always be prepared.
So we ran through what happens in the callback. What happens after the callback? Do you sit by your computer and wait for like a call?
Definitely don't do that. I've learned the hard way. Don't do that. I can tell you what you should do is as soon as you walk out that door or close out that Zoom meeting, throw it out the window.
Just forget it.
That was in the past. Even if it was just 30 seconds ago, don't think about it anymore. As long as you did your best, you know that you did your best, you listened, you were there, you were present, you listened to all the directions that they told you, you did what you had to do. Keep yourself busy, do things, because naturally I can tell you what I used to do when I started auditioning until now, especially when you really want the job, when it's one of those bucket list jobs and you're really excited and you felt like you did good. Naturally, you're going to, I can say with my experience, you're going to like, man, I should have done that. I should have said this. You're kind of just nitpicking your whole callback audition. It's going to happen. I feel like if you're human, you're going to do that, especially if you love what you do and you want the job. But you got to let it go. You got to let it go and just hopefully you're busy enough where you're doing other jobs that you don't even have time to think about it. But yeah, if they want you, you'll get that. You'll get that email. And if you get antsy, because it could take up to you actually told me that you got put on hold the same day. Like you were still driving home you were put on avail.
I got the email that I was put on avail before I made it home from the callback. Like that was wild.
Yeah. That's very seldom, but it happens. So you get as soon as walking out the door, going on your way home from the same day, or I remember getting availed 2 weeks after. I remember even like a couple days after shoot date. Or I know some actors who wind up even getting a call on the shoot, like the night of the shoot, because somebody
Oh, because
you
they kind of
know,
like fill in for
somebody,
else
yeah.
conflict or something happened.
And if you don't get it, don't take it personal. You never know what happens in the decision-making room and as to why they didn't choose you. It's like not about you. It's not about, it's about the brand. It's about the vision that they created. Sometimes it could be like, you know, it's a group of friends and, you know, like, oh, we already have a blonde. You know, I think it would look aesthetically better like if we had a short hair girl. It has nothing to do with your performance at all. Like, so it's not about you. Just be on to the next mentality. Every single audition, first call, callback is all a learning experience. That's why I say naturally as a human, yes, you are going to replay and redo and like, oh, I should have done this. Like, great, take note of those so you could take it on to the next audition. If you really do feel like you could have done that, like just remember that for the next time, but don't let it kill you on this audition. It already happened. Move forward. You're not going to book them all. They're not, because they're not for you. Like I'm 33 now and I'm not going to book, you know, I'm not going to book some jobs where, you know, the target market is for 18-year-olds. If they want me, great. But
hey, that's their decision. Again, goes right back to it. If they want you for that 18-year-old role, that's your role.
Yeah.
And that's what they chose. They saw you, they reviewed you, they made a collective decision that that's what they want for you.
Right. Yeah. But what my point was that you're not going to book all of them just because it's not your character. Like, it's just, there are other people that are more fit and it's more like, that's who they are. They're an actual architect. You know, or, you know, whatever it is. And that's well deserved. By learning experience, you're gaining experience. And by putting yourself in these roles, in these environments where there's all these people watching you, that's where all the tension starts to slowly strip away. And if you just have the perspective of it, everything is a learning experience. And if I don't get this, at least if I did my best, I'm showing the casting director that I'm reliable and I'm great. Even the director, if they don't book me for this job, later on for future projects, like, you know what, man, she didn't fit. I loved her. She didn't really fit for this role, but I'll keep her in mind. Or, and it happened, I mean, that's where a lot of my jobs come now, where it could fills in the blanks, the gaps of when haven't booked anything. I'm working still because I'll have some directors that I've already worked in the past. Like, hey, I have this project that I'm working on. Can I pitch you to the client? I think you'd be perfect for it. And that's exactly what happened. So just continue to show up, go to the room, do your best. That's all you can do. As long as you did your best, it'll show up for you later on in the future.
How do you prepare? How do you prepare for a callback? I don't know. For me, I was so nervous for it being my first one that I just tried to treat it like a sporting event almost. Like I was like trying to get this mentality of like win or go home type attitude, which we just discussed is not necessarily like the best way to go about it. But how do you prepare?
Right. So in regards to how to treat it, you treat it like you booked the job already. You show up, whether it's in person, you walk into the room, or when you're driving there, you woke up in the morning and like, I got the job. I'm on my way to set. When I meet the director, when I meet the team, this is when I'm auditioning in front of the camera, this is me working. This is me on set right now. You're treating it like this is how, because it's essentially what it is. And that's what they're testing you for. And then there's something about the mentally where when you look at it as you already got the job as to you're trying to get the job, how it's perceived and how you act and how you carry yourself is completely different.
Did you do any research before that? Like, are you, like, is there homework involved? I don't know.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. If you really want to, for callbacks, if you really want to stand out, and it took me a while to start to implement this in my career, you know, especially when I have the client name, it's not a code name. If I have the client, I'm going to instantly look them up on Instagram, and I'm going to see how their ads run. Like, do they have a color scheme? You know, certain logos, like say Target, you know, they like red, you know, so maybe you're going to want to wear a red shirt, you know, or unless it's like holiday or for whatever reason, and they tell you what to wear. And then if you really want to do the work, and hopefully sometimes they will, you know, especially if it's a big director, they'll say the name like, oh, with, in the breakdown, like, oh, with director, blah, blah, blah. If you could look them up just to have a little homework, like it would be great. And then it's also a conversation piece, like, hey, I like your work, blah, blah. that's an add-on, but in preparation to, that's for on set actually. But for callbacks, just kind of getting a feel, like that's what you can do if you want to on your own time.
So it's not even like deep dive research. It's just
Just go to YouTube and just look at how their commercials. Just watch their commercials and how they do it, and look at like the cast and how they carry themselves, and just get a feel. You don't have to like mock the commercial and like, okay, like, but just kind of get their vibe.
Do you wear the same thing that you wore in like the first call?
Yes, that's weird, right? Yeah, I wear the same thing, and I only know that because I learned that from my commercial workshop.
What that you wore in the first call,
you wear
to you enough to call you back for the callback.
Yes.
So why disrupt the boat?
Exactly.
And wear
exactly. Yeah.
But where does that meet? Where does that conflict with the idea of homework, right? Where you said if it's Target and I didn't wear red in my first call, I didn't know it was Target.
Oh, right.
You said,
yeah.
Like, there's some research there.
Yeah, I would have already worn that to the first call.
But
if you have a shirt that's the same vibe, you're just literally just changing the color. Sure. You don't have to. You really don't have to. They brought you in.
Color, not like changing into like.
Do not completely change.
All of a sudden you were wearing a suit. Now you're wearing like a lime green T-shirt. Like you're not gonna do that.
Don't completely change.
Okay.
Because they called you in because they liked what they saw. Yeah. And then if they did want you to change, they would specifically say that in the breakdown or in the callback. Also, don't underestimate what a breakdown provides. Even if it's a callback and it says the same thing on your first call. Go back to the callback, read the breakdown, and even from your age range, who you are, your role. For example, I had a callback for Toyota. It was, at the time, I was, my mid-20s, and they looked for hip, cool, trendy. And in the breakdown, it said, loves art, music, and appreciation for music. So with that small information, okay, I'm hip, cool, trendy. So I'm already in that cool, like, I'm cool, how you carry yourself. I'm cool. I like music and I like art. Mind you, you don't know what they're going to ask you. So when I went into that callback, they were like, okay, you're just driving and you're just driving around the street and you're just looking around, looking left from right. And that's it. Literally, that was it.
That was the action.
Okay. So why I am cueing in on how you can use this little information that's in your breakdown to carry on into your audition, because even though you don't know what you're going to do, as long as you know, like, hey, I'm this, this, and this. This is what I'm portraying as. This is what they want out of me. I decided when I came into the car, I put on my seatbelt, I improvised. I turned on the radio. I like music. And then when I'm looking out the window, all they said was, you're just driving down the street with your friend. I had a scene partner. We're driving down the street. And when you're looking, I'm like, oh, look at that museum. Have you been to the Getty? And then the conversations that you choose, it's like, just have small conversation. And you're just talking with your friend on your way to the movies. So that's what it was. Yeah. You're on the way to movies. So just with those just keep those in mind. Even though you don't know, it's like, okay, in case they have me improvise, whatever it is, I'm going to try to implement anything that portrays that I like music and art. And that's homework. Boom. And they could have given me a completely different scenario. I didn't have to be driving. I would have somehow figured in that moment. That takes practice. Right. That's going to exercising for sure. Those choices, the more you continue to exercise that and implement it, like, okay, they want this, and like, I just need to make sure I'm in this character that I like this and this, because yeah. And so that led me to make the choice of like, oh, I'm a person who likes music. Let me turn on the radio and I'm leaning back. I'm cool. Oh, have you been to the Getty? I love it. Have you been to that exhibit? Boom. Then you all of a sudden stand out because you are that role.
Right.
Like, that's her.
Absolutely.
And I booked that job. You just naturally implement it. You have no exact of like, okay, you don't prepare because you don't never know what they're going to ask. You're like, okay, I'm going to do this and this, because what if they don't even ask you about anything about that? Just keep it in mind in case that if it's perfect, you're like, oh, I'm ready. Sometimes you don't get a lot of information, but even if it was just the role name, young, like a mom, I'm going in and I'm already in the mentality of a mom. Of just how I even talk. They're looking for someone who's warm, and so you're gonna speak softer.
Do you like? Would you
even
like
how
any candy? Would you like any hard candy?
Just even how you slate your name, like instead of like, hey, what's up, you guys? My name is Camille Teodoro. It's like, hey, my name is Camille Teodoro, or however I have to say it so many different times. Like, hey, how are you? My name is Camille.
The way you slate
is you're already in that character. As much as you could implement, even just from a breakdown, your breakdown could sell you so much.
Obviously, for anyone who does improv, like that's an exercise in your improv skills in which you're working on. And so for those who haven't done improv or haven't learned improv, taken an improv class, that's your calling to take an improv class, right?
Yeah. Exactly. The difference with bookers and the other 80% that are auditioning is we're looking through the perspective and the eyes of the creative, and, you know, as opposed to coming as an actor. If you could see their vision of what they're trying to bring to life and create and try to help them make that a reality, and having the perspective of like, how am I going to make this sell? How am I going to make this product as much money as possible?
Right. It's not about me.
It's not about me. It's about the ad, the product. Okay. So if they're reaching out to me because I can touch the hearts of fellow 30-year-old moms who just need more efficient cleaning, you know, and they're using me as a tool to be able to reach out to that demographic. Yeah. So how can I do that? And then, you know, you're just looking in the sense of that. Everything unfolds and becomes easy because you're no longer taking things personal, because you're looking from their standpoint, not like, how can I like stand out as an actor? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You're removing yourself and kind of like your ego from the equation, and you're becoming the tool.
You're the vessel. You're the vessel for the brand. You're not this. You think you're the star. You think you're the principal, but really, the brand is the principal. Yeah. So how can I help market this car? How can I help market this detergent or cell phone? You know, and it's always about that. So when you're improvising with a phone, like you really make it if you can, like make it about whatever that product is. Implement that. Always remember that's first. When you're making decisions and improvising, keep that in the forefront of your head before you walk into the room or go on to Zoom. Remember what this product is and what they want to highlight.
So understanding the product is huge, right? If it's OxyClean, you don't realize that it can also work on colors and not just whites. Like that's something you're missing if you don't learn that ahead of time. You know,
exactly.
If you're not a car guy, but you're doing, you know, a Toyota pickup truck commercial, and you don't understand how like 4-wheel drive, you know, it's like a switch on the dash. You know, then that's maybe not something that you're able to improvise in that moment to give you that leg up, huh?
Yeah. Oh, and the buttons. Have I mentioned a button?
What's a button? That's
really big in callbacks too, or auditioning. A button is a tagline that you add in the end of your audition to help you stand out. You know, and you're improvising, you're just making stuff up on the fly, and the car is for the CRV 2023, and it's like, I don't know, 3 times faster. You don't really know much. Whatever the improv was, like, oh, I don't know, you see your friends driving down the street, and you're just hanging out with your friends, like drinking. I totally made that up. Not drinking. You know, but your tagline can be like, wow, that's a really fast car. Like, wow, that car's like, you know, it's just something that's kind of related to what the breakdown was. And that's your last, that's how you end it, so that they're left with like, you know,
okay, that's huge.
It's a psychological thing that leaves you, because you're the last. You want to try to be the last person if you're with a group, try to be the last person to have a button, so that you're the one leaving them with like, you stand out. It's definitely a technique.
It absolutely is. And I'm thinking about that about my audition this morning. I'm just going to say for an airline company, you know. And the question was like, you know, where's your dream vacation? And, you know, now all of a sudden when you say this, I'm thinking, you know, we said our dream vacation. I said Iceland, Bria said Costa Rica. And then we just smiled and we ended it rather than saying, we got to fly there.
Yeah.
You know, like something airline related.
Yeah.
Something like,
something.
You know, when we go, we're going first class.
And if you could really find it in the breakdown, because a lot of times you can find any little thing that's enough in the breakdown to like, okay, I'm gonna latch onto that. You know, but it does. I'm not gonna lie, that it does take time to implement and get better at, Eventually it's just,
what do you do to kind of get your mind right before a callback? Like, do you have like a routine?
I've implemented a new one. I had a completely different one when it was in person or when it is in person. That was a lot easier. From the moment I wake up, wake up in a moment of just being grateful. And I'm just grateful that I have this opportunity. It's all mindset. And how you start it is going to domino effect for the rest of your day. If it was in person, from the moment, anything I input, I have my playlist. I have a callback playlist. This is actually something I also learned from my coach, Mike Pointer, with Hey, I Saw Your Commercial, which is part of a routine. It is important. Every actor should create their own ritual. And it's from the moment you wake up and you start in this positive space, from the music you listen to, and if you're driving in the car, you're smiling. People that you drive by, you're just like, hey, like you're just in this open energy, like where you're just like, hey, like, when you just have good days, you just say hi to strangers, like because you're just you had a good day, like, hey, how you doing? Just smile, nod. When there was a waiting room in person, you talk amongst your peers, because a lot of times when you're in person in the waiting room, you audition with those groups of people. You never know if you get partnered or if you work with them, so you're already starting like, oh, do you want to stick a gum? That was one of the advice. I don't know what it was, but I remember Coach Mike Pointer, like, always have mints with you. He was like, always carry a pack of mints or gum with you to offer to your fellow actor, to fellow actors because it starts a camaraderie. It's simpler now for me. Now it's really more from right before the Zoom meeting starts or walking into the room. I literally just close my eyes, however long it takes, take a deep breath. And again, it's like, I just tell myself, I am grateful for being here. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to be my most authentic self and be me. And I'm going to listen and be present. And whatever they tell me to do, I'm going to be here to give it to them because I'm present. And then whatever direction they do give me, because I'm playing these characters, I'm still delivering it with my unique authenticness.
You're keeping that.
Because we're still all different. Every actor still has a different personality. So yeah, when I give advice with the future or now, you take whatever you want as a grain of salt. If it helps you or not, because you're still your unique person. And if it aligns with you, it aligns with you, because that's where we book differently. Like, we're not going to book the same things. Trust your gut and deliver in your most unique self. There are times where I felt so bubbly. I had the best day. And a lot of it does happen. Like, I have all the green lights. Like, I'm going to book this one, and a lot of times I have booked, but there are times where I came into the room super psyched, really excited, and I didn't even get, I wasn't even put on a veil. And the ones where I'm super vulnerable and just like, I had a terrible day. Like, and this is me. This is what you're going to get. I honestly don't know how I got here. I book. Super unpredictable. I know. But I don't know what it is about being vulnerable. In the end, it comes down to taking off all those shells and just being you. If you're getting callbacks, you should be proud of yourself. You're getting callbacks. You're doing the job. Your agents are going to be happy for you and proud of you. Casting directors are going to continuously bring you in because you're showing results. You're making them look good. Avails, even better. And if you're only getting avails and you haven't booked yet, you're going to book. It'll come. Don't worry, it'll come. Promise you. Even if you got 7 avails and you got released in all of them, it'll come.
I always said at the agency, when talent were getting really frustrated when they were getting put on avails but they weren't getting bookings, I'm like, and it's like we talked about before, it's like they're making decisions that are not about you. If they're putting you on avail, if they're giving you a callback, they like you. Mm-hmm. The final decision is not in your hands. Everything that you've done to get to that point has been great, and that is success.
Yeah.
That is success.
It happens. I use the number 7 because I was on avail consecutively. I was on avail for 7 jobs. Didn't get any of them. I wound up getting released. It eventually comes. And, I do want to say this. It was when COVID just happened, and Dina from DB Casting was having her weekly lives on Instagram. Okay, yeah. How much, especially now, because it's online and self-tapes. So if you get an audition, period, be grateful. Mm-hmm. Because nowadays they're getting a submission of 2,000. Just getting submitted for the first call. Okay, so if you get a first call from 2,000 submissions and you get chosen, even if they bring in 100 people, you got chosen, okay? Then a callback from I just made that number. If it went from 2,000 or say 1,000 down to, they selected 100 people to audition for the first call. Then they narrow it down to 25 for a callback. If you make it to a callback and go from 1,000 submissions to top 25, be proud of yourself.
And have that
And then
mentality.
and then being on hold. Then it goes from the 25 to like 5. If you look at it in that grand scale, you're doing amazing. That's all you can ask for.
And I think understanding how many people are being submitted daily gives you a really good feeling about what you do get.
Mm-hmm.
And you also understand the competitiveness of this industry and why working on your craft is so important, because there are so many people trying to work. And when you get those little successes, you get an audition, you get a callback, you get an avail, that's success, and that's something to take gratefully. This is okay. Now you got a callback. What do you do now? And we're going to come back with more episodes, but if you have questions, comments, or want clarification on anything we talked about here today, please leave us a comment below and we will address them, whether right there in the comments or making future videos, because we have no shortage of topics that we are here to discuss. And with that, get out there and go book it.
Book it.